Shalom everybody, welcome back with insights in the Parsha of the week, Parshat Mishpatim, based on Likutey Moharan, Rebbe Nachman's lessons, in particular lesson 24, Bezrat Hashem. This Parsha, as everyone knows and we see, is power-packed with tons of mitzvot, very long Rashis. One topic, one verse we'd like to focus on today is the laws of ribit, the laws of interest, charging interest. So the verse reads, this is chapter 22, verse 24. The verse reads, Im kesef talveh, when, not if, when you shall lend money. To who do you lend? Et ami, to someone who's a Jew. If you have a choice between a Jew or a non-Jew, you lend money to a Jew. And then, if it's a choice between someone who has money or someone who's poor, so the verse continues, Et ha'ani, so someone who's from our nation, someone who's poor, imach. Imach means if he's a poor person from another city, a poor person from your city, who's first? Priority is the poor of your city. Aniyei irecha, it's called. Lo tiye lo kenoshe. Don't be like on him like demanding for the money back. Don't be in a forced demanding attitude, because between you and Hashem how much Hashem is easy with you. And he's always doing good for you. So you too also learn how to just be patient and wait. And then the verse continues, and here we learn the law of interest. Lo tesimun alav neshech. Don't place the loan upon him in neshech, which means interest. Rashi, let's take a look at Rashi. The last Rashi on this verse 24 again. Neshech, Rashi says clearly, ribit, interest. And so now this funny word, what is neshech? What in the world does neshech have to do with interest? The translation of word neshech means a bite, like an animal noshech, an animal that bites. It's a neshicha. It's being bitten. What in the world is the connection between being bitten and interest? So Rashi says the whole interest thing is called a bite, an animal, a creature's bite. Shehu keneshichat nachash. Rashi is quoting from the Midrash Tanchuma, who brings this analogy that interest is like being bitten by a snake bite. Shenoshech chaburak tana beraglo. The snake bites a very small and insignificant bite on a person's leg. Ve'eno margish, and the person doesn't feel the pain of the bite. He doesn't feel the poison yet of the bite. Upitom, and then suddenly, instantly, because of the blood flow of the body, obviously, the person is now swollen and beet red and like pumped in size and volume up to his skull. So the snake bit on the foot, and then the person feels the poison, the impact of the poison up to his skull, up to his head. Okay? Kach ribit, that's the analogy. What's the nimshal? Kach ribit, eno margish ve'eno nikar. So too, interest. A person pays interest. The person doesn't feel, it's only 0.01%, it's okay. He doesn't feel the impact of the interest. And it's not noticeable. It's such a small amount. I don't see it. I can pay back in time. Don't worry. Ad sharibit ole umechasero mamon harbe. Until the interest, which is charged also on the previous interest. The next interest is the total amount owed plus interest. And on that, they charge new interest and more interest and more interest, until the person loses, the interest causes the person to lose a lot of money. Okay? There's something deeper here between the connection of a snake's bite, that the whole prohibition of interest is called a bite. You couldn't just use ribit. Ribit means harbe, that you add interest. You add more, I understand that. But now the whole term is called on a snake bite, and dafka, specifically the bite of a snake. What's going on? Let's try to take a look on a deeper level. Rebbe Nachman quotes a lot from the Zohar, which likens the bite of the snake as the bite of depression. Because just as the snake bites even without any benefit, they say that the snake doesn't have taste buds. Everything tastes the same for it. Everything tastes like afar. That's one of the curses that the snake received. So it can bite someone, a creature, a human being, and derive no benefit from biting that person. Okay? But it's always feeling empty, because now everything tastes the same by snake. He's always lacking and lacking and lacking. So to the person who's depressed and sad, is the bite of the snake is called the bite of depression, is that a person feels always empty when he's depressed and sad and emptiness due to the sadness, okay? So we liken the bite of the snake to someone who has the bite of depression. When a person is depressed, he feels totally empty and desperate, okay? Now, the main area where a person who can feel desperate and empty and worried is in monetary issues. Oh my God, how am I going to pay the rent? Oh my God, how am I going to do this? How am I going to cover tuition? How am I going to buy food? How am I going to do this? A person starts fretting, especially when it comes to income, because income is the most clear area of life where a person is dependent upon God. It's one area that it's Hashem shining a person's sustenance, okay? And the test, the antithesis of that faith and trust in God is a blemish in money, believing that money is the cause, is the belief, everything is money. So when a person charges interest, by interest, by the way, everybody gets punished. The person giving the interest, the money, giving the loan of interest, the person taking the loan of interest, the banks involved, the people involved, anyone involved in the interest contract is punished. Why? Why is it so severe? Because it's the absolute highest blemish in believing in Hashem's sustenance. Hashem created the world in a way that he wants man to believe that he's behind things. It's true that person, Hashem, gave the scenario of making money, but like Rebbe Nachman teaches in many places, especially in lesson 29, the reason why you're working is not to make money. The reason why you're working is in order to give tzedakah. Amazing, an amazing perspective. You're not working in order to bring bread, even though it seems like that. That's the test. The reason why you're working is in order to give tzedakah. Sustenance, that comes from Hashem. Okay? You're working for another thing. To fix past blemishes, to give tzedakah. There's many things involved in masa matan, in monetary issues. But now sustenance, you daven about it every day. Potech et yadecha umasbiah lecho charatzon. We say it 3 times a day in Ashrei. And this verse is the most important verse of Ashrei. Hashem, you open your hands and you satiate all living with your desire. According to Ratzon, according to your desire, according to their desire, okay? So sustenance comes from Hashem. So then when a person now, based on that, charges interest on his money being by somebody else, or the person receiving money and willing to pay interest, that's considered one of the greatest blemishes of belief and bitachon. So now, going back to what we said, what leads a person to this mess, to this trouble, to this transgression, to this terrible situation of borrowing money with interest or lending money with interest, okay? It comes from that a person feels lacking. He feels empty. And he feels that he needs the money, so he has access to money, charge it with interest. He has access to borrow money with interest, so take it. Take it with the interest. All that reflects a person's blemish in his faith, and it comes from that a person feels worried. And the worrying comes from the bite of the snake, which is depression. When a person has sadness and depression, and worry comes is directly related to the sadness and depression. Okay? So now, neshech also, the bite, shows you that this transgression of charging interest is so severe that the damage reaches the highest levels. This is what Rashi hinted to, or the Midrash that Rashi is quoting, the Midrash Tanchuma. The snake bites a person in its legs and doesn't feel anything until he feels it in his head. That his whole body up to his skull, the kod, he uses the terminology, begins to feel the swelling and the pain of the snake bite all the way on the leg. So Rebbe Nachman teaches that a Jew has to try his best to do mitzvot with joy. What the mitzvah of joy does is that it elevates any holiness which is trapped in evil, elevates it to the level of the legs, the spiritual dimension of the legs. And when the mitzvah enters the spiritual dimension of the legs, that means it gains momentum and can go up and up and up and up until it reaches what's called the Keter, which is the crown. And another term for the Keter, by the way, is kod. Like a skull, a human skull, in a sense, is like a crown protecting and surrounding the brain. So too, a crown is on, surrounding and protecting the person's head, the king's head. So there's a similarity to the person's skull, which is also called a Keter, and it's similarity to the concept of the Keter. So in the positive vein, when a Jew is happy and does mitzvot b'simcha, it goes away all the way from the legs, all the way up to the Keter, meaning enables a person to tap into the light, the infinite light, carried beyond the Keter, and thus shining that clarity and harmony into a person's life. But now the opposite is true. If a person, God forbid, has been bitten by the bite of depression of the serpent, which brings with it worry and difficulty and trouble, and then a person feels he has to borrow money with debt, with interest, and that being a major blemish of his emunah and bitachon, all due to being depressed, because now he's blocked off the channels of blessing to come down to him because of his worrying and depression. So the opposite, the blemish reaches from the legs, the bite of the snake on the legs, all the way also up to the Keter, the crown, the head. In other words, just as simcha causes an opening of light and clarity from the infinite light, which is beyond the level of the Keter, the crown, the head, the skull, so too, chas v'shalom, in the opposite direction, interest, which is due to the bite of the snake, the damage caused by interest, paying interest or charging interest, is so severe that it causes a blockage even from the highest level of the infinite light. The person is really in a tight and tough situation where he feels everything is closed off, all spiritual light. This is hinted to in the word used by the Parsha for the ribit, the bite of the snake, neshech. The verse read, Lo tesimun alav neshech. Don't put upon the person borrowing money, neshech ribit. Neshech can be divided in two sections, nun, shach. What's nun, shach? Nun is the number 50, alluding to the 50th level, the 50th gate, which is another term for the Keter in the Kabbalah, this level of the skull, which carries beyond the access to the infinite light. Shach in the Kabbalah is what's known as 320 dinim, judgments, which are severities, difficulties, and interest being paid or being taken due to worry, due to sadness and depression, is an activation of these shach dinim. And the Torah is hinting that the repercussion of paying interest allows access of the shach dinim all the way up to the nun, to the Keter. That's what Rashi said, that the bite of the snake goes all the way up to the skull, meaning it goes from the lowest level to the highest level. Why is it so bad? Because it's the biggest blemish of emunah and bitachon in Hashem. Hashem is sustaining you. Why are you paying interest? Why are you charging interest? You don't believe that God is running the world? No, my money, my business, and that. So you're stuck in the biggest trap of the world. That's considered one of the worst things, is the charging of interest, because you block off Hashem's guidance and supervision and blessing when interest is charged or interest is taken. And all this is due to what? A lack of simcha. The lack of simcha led to worry and daigis, and that caused the person to fall into the trap. Oh my God, how am I going to do this? How am I going to pay that? And he went in to take a loan with interest. Okay? That shows that he is lacking in his emunah. So the Torah is hinting to the damage of ribit, but in the damage, we know the reparation. The reparation is to work on being besimcha, work to such a degree of tapping into simcha of the mitzvah that you just feel you and Hashem, and that should reopen a new avenue for a person to get out of any interest that he's been trapped in until now. We should be zocheh to be saved from these terrible traps of the snake, the bite of the snake, the bite of sadness and depression, the bite of worriness, and we should be zocheh to always feel Hashem's sustenance upon us, and to see it, to feel it, and to appreciate it, and to give thanks to it also. Shabbat shalom, vorach.